Welcome everybody to the launch of Site Shepherd. We are very, very excited about this. As you will hear in this webinar, this is something that we have been working on for many, many years. And we're very excited to tell you a little bit more about the origin of this software, cloud-based software we call Site Shepherd, and also about what it can do and where we're going in the future. I want to give you a little bit of background because when we looked at who was signing up for this webinar, it was a mix of economic developers, real estate agents, site selection consultants, corporate actives, and also research institutes. So some of you may be very familiar with Global Location Strategies, and some of you may not be familiar with us at all. So just a little bit of background. Global Location Strategies has been around since the 1970s and grew out of the Fluor Daniel organization, now called Fluor. Since 2009, we've been a separate entity, but our pedigree is really in large, capital-intensive, process-related industries. So think metals, paper, biotech and pharma, advanced materials, et cetera. So we've been doing this, or my predecessors have been doing this for decades. I've been doing it myself for about 23 years. And what you're going to find out is that this product really came out of the need to solve some of our pain points. So the origin story of Site Shepherd, which we're saying equip your team to reach common ground, is that we really need to go back and look at the history of site selection. And some of you may be very familiar with this, but really started in the 1920s with a man named Felix Fantas. And he moved his furniture factory from Chicago to Indiana. And he realized at the time that this was a pretty complex decision, and there wasn't a profession or a school of thought or an industry that could support companies that wanted to make these moves. And so he founded the Fantas Company, which is eventually acquired by Deloitte. And you can trace many of the site selection consultants that do this today. You can trace them either back to Deloitte and Fantas, to Fluor Daniel, or to IBM, which we'll show also was very big and is very big in the site selection business. There were several major projects between particularly in the 1940s and 50s for the U.S. government, including U.S. Air Force Academy, Los Alamos Natural Laboratory, and the Hanford Nuclear Site. And there were challenges that presented themselves back then that still remain challenges today. So how do you collect the data? How do you analyze the data? How can you be transparent with your clients and also the communities that you're considering? And then how do you allow collaboration across geographies and across different types of teams? We move forward to the 1970s to the 1990s, and the powerhouses of site selection were really Deloitte, which acquired Fantas, Fluor, which was previously Fluor Daniel, and before that Daniel, and then IBM with their Plant Location International. And these three firms dominated site selection. And at the time, there were a lot of barriers to entry because we didn't have the internet, so it was difficult to make the connections for the people at the local level that needed to give you the data. The data analysis itself was laborious. I have old reports that date back to the 70s where everything was typed up and people were actually calculating cost on an adding machine and attaching the tape to the report. And you pretty much learned the process from mentors and other practitioners, which really led us to the 1990s and up until today. So there was sort of a proliferation of site selection experts that left these major companies or came out of other organizations. And we really see the site selection now concentrated in the hands of, the architectural engineering and construction firms, real estate firms, the boutiques, which Global Location Strategies would fall into that category, accounting firms like Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and then you also have your corporate do-it-yourselfers. And so companies are making many of these decisions without the aid of a site selection expert, or in some cases, if you look at some of the companies that have lots of decisions on an annual basis, like Amazon or Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they have their own internal corporate site selectors that are helping them perform that function. So something really interesting happened in 2011, which was where we had the meeting of data communication. So if you think about how we started this way back in the 70s or even before, it was, everything was done by the telephone. Nobody had a cell phone, all the way up to email and social media. And then you also had data management. So data management for us used to be, we had a library at Fuller Daniel where we would file, and this was a physical library, not an electronic library, where we would file information about all of the states and communities and countries that we were considering. Now, then we kept it on servers, and now all of that has moved to the cloud. And so in about 2011 is when data communication and data management came together. And the result was, let me go forward here, was a proliferation of these game-changing cloud-based softwares that really transform entire industries. And so you've got Amazon, you have Zillow, Spotify in the music industry. Business Insider is a result of the news moving to a cloud-based platform, personal transportation, and entertainment. If I go back one and just talk a little bit about what's happened with the site selection industry, pre-1990, it was all relationship-based, very high barriers to entry. Then with the proliferation of the internet and email and being able to access these things free of charge, the barriers went way down. I used to say that the only barrier to be as a site selection consultant was a cell phone, a frequent flyer card, and a $400 subscription to Google Earth Pro. But then they made Google Earth Pro free, and so there were no financial barriers. But what we have seen over time is that with more and more of these cloud-based softwares like labor data analytics from JobsEQ and MC, GIS with companies like ArcGIS and cloud-based platforms like GeoThink, all types of analysis tools like for data visualization like Tableau and Power BI. I mean, the cost for the tools of the trade have gone up, and we spend six figures on data analysis and tools to help us gather that data. So that has, in order to be really professional and to do a good job, the barriers to entry have also gone up. But during all of this, what we have not seen is a major transformation in the process of site selection, how we collect the data, how we analyze the data, and how we report out to our clients, the way that we have in these industries. And basically what it boils down to is scale. All of these have scale. So you think about the trillions of transactions that take place, or trillions of dollars of transactions that take place on Amazon and other software, retail software, the hundreds of thousands of homes that are, I think it's up to like 4 million homes that are sold every year in the US. Even Despacito by Ricky Martin hit I think it was 5 trillion downloads on Spotify not long ago. So when you compare that to the, maybe 20,000, even if we're not, this is just cross-border projects that are happening annual, so corporate location decisions that are being made. When you compare that to, these other very large-scale industries, you can see why there hasn't been a lot of attention by big tech to help transform this industry. But as the cost of developing these softwares, as the cost of hosting cloud-based platforms on the internet has gone down, it's given people like us the opportunity to transform our industries. But it has been at a very Despacito pace. And that was one of the things that was very frustrating for us. So as Susan's going to talk about, when we first started looking at how do we transform this industry, or how do we become more efficient, we really just set out to become more efficient. And what we found is that there was nothing out there that we could buy off the shelf. So we took it upon ourselves to start that transformation on our own. So now I'm going to turn it over to Susan, and she'll talk about the origin story of Site Shepherd.
Okay, do you see the making of Site Shepherd slides? Fantastic. So thank you, Dee Dee. I'm Susan Donkers, and I'll be talking for a few minutes here about the making of Site Shepherd from 2015 to 2021. And then we'll, in about 8-9 minutes, we'll transition into a demonstration of the software. And the software is at siteshepherd.com, and you log into it at app.siteshepherd.com. But I'll tell you, how did we get to this point where it actually exists? So it started in 2015. As an idea, a thought bubble of what if we became more efficient. a pretty innocent question that then led into a Despacito process, as Dee Dee says. So the first step was, let's look at all the phases of site selection and evaluate all their inputs and outputs as part of a business process efficiency project. And what you see here is the result of a Post-it note exercise where there is a person with their arms out wide, embracing both companies and communities to become a matchmaker, sitting really in a harmonious way at a community table. This shows the actual Post-it note exercise. So those of you that know Monty Turner might recognize Monty in this picture. And then you'll see Dee Dee there. We papered all the walls of the conference room, got stacks of Post-it notes and Sharpie markers, and really thought through all the people, data points, communities that a site selection project touches, and then really we're humbled and honored by how much of a global experience it is and how many people are part of the process with the site selector as one of many leaders. So we played some music and we had a Post-it note exercise and put lots of thoughts on the wall back in 2015. Then we decided to build a prototype. So we got into a conference room and we rolled paper out on the table and we used Legos to represent data and Matchbox cars to represent communities, and made a prototype, and everybody was able to kind of stand back and look and see, wow, this is quite a complex process of data management. This is an example of there being many stakeholders in the process, and this is the first time that we asked ourselves some what-if questions from service design, which one of them was, how might we serve project managers with a toolkit? When we did a user experience exercise of looking at, well, who's actually typing data into models and who's actually analyzing data, we asked ourselves, how might we create a location intelligence database? And then we really wanted to be mindful of all the different customer types and expanding the definition of customer. So customer could be the corporation, the customer is also economic development organization, the customer is all the other stakeholders in a community that benefit from a location decision. We took it one phase at a time. So in our practice, site selection has phases 1 through 6, and we sell phases 1 at a time. We consult 1 phase at a time, and really think about it as a location journey. And so that's how we did the business process project as well. And one of the things that we learned from this is that a new strategic objective emerged, which is we actually have an opportunity to revolutionize site selection as a part of the business process efficiency. So this picture is showing a hydroelectric dam with water behind the dam pressing on it, and then it's being let out slowly, and then it's creating energy. So the corollary here is there is an enormous amount of data collected during a site selection process or a location adventure. And that data is represented by the lake behind the dam. And if you don't control the data, organize it in a systematic way, analyze it in a systematic way, then that water is just going to come flooding on through and wreak havoc down below for the rest of your site selection journey. But if you actually have an efficient process and have a plan and control that data, then you can use it to harness a significant amount of energy, and that's what we wanted to accomplish. So a new mission emerged, which is, what if we created a product as well as a service for every corporate location decision? And that's when the idea for Site Shepherd was born. Site Shepherd has been through many names, the Location Intelligence Database, the Site Selection Project Management app. We're very pleased that we now have a name, which is Site Shepherd. During the pandemic, we were busy creating a minimum viable product, which is represented on the screen here. This shows an example of the decision-making model where you can weight each decision criteria. And then in 2021, we had the commercial launch, which means we named and created a website. And I have to really acknowledge Katie Harris, marketing manager for our firm, for helping lead us through the commercialization process. This is an example of some internal training that we did with our team to support Site Shepherd. So we have created a help center, a support@siteshepherd.com email address. We've created in-app help guides and really thought about this, that if anyone licenses the use of the software, that the consulting team will be available to help support anyone on their journey. So who can benefit from Site Shepherd? As part of that, expanding the definition of client, we have thought through we've named 6 customer types, and the list can go on and on. Really, the big idea is it's site selection for all. As part of the business process efficiency project, the result is we're harnessing the ability to collect data in an organized way, analyze it, and visually report it. And anyone who influences a location decision can benefit from that kind of big data management. So that's corporations, corporate decision makers, site selection consultants like us, real estate brokers and developers, architecture, engineering, and construction firms, and of course, economic development organizations. So site selection for all is really our big idea. So at this point, I'll transition into a demonstration of the software, and I am heading over into app.siteshepherd.com. So I'll stop presenting and share my screen. Okay, Dee Dee, can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Okay, great. So where I'm at on the internet is here is siteshepherd.com. So www.siteshepherd.com is our front-facing marketing website with our tagline of equip your team to reach common ground. And on this website, anyone who's interested in learning more after this call today can click this book a demo button, and that will go to me or a member of our team to a calendar, and we are very happy to jump on a call to either walk you through the software or just have a conversation. So that's available here at the book a demo. Then any client that licenses use of the software will be able to log in from this website through the login button. Once you log in, you're also you stay in the cloud. Site Shepherd is hosted on a Microsoft Azure, one of the cloud-based apps that Dee Dee was referencing that came out in around 2000, 2011. It's a competitor of Amazon Web Services that makes it possible to host a large amount of data in the cloud. So app.siteshepherd.com sits on that Microsoft platform. Site Shepherd is organized by project. So you'll see up here the My Projects tab. And then also each user's name is in the upper right-hand corner, and there's features here for administration, additional resources, and then that help center ecosystem that we talked about earlier. Because it's organized by project, you can create a project through the Create a Project button, give it a name, and fill out some basic information. You can also copy a previous project that you have done. So the practitioners in site selection know that when you create those models, you're creating a significant amount of work. And so the software gives you the ability to copy a previous project for a previous client and then tweak it for the new project. There's also a search feature here. So I'm going to search here for one of our demonstration projects that we've called Project Nimbus and walk you through how the software works. The first place you enter is the project dashboard. We've organized Site Shepherd through a navigation system that's on this toolbar in gray that goes from project on the left through data model, project analytics, locations, charts, and then export. We wanted to make sure that all data can be exported. So all data can be exported to Excel, which makes this the ability to provide data to clients, provide data to communities. The data belongs to the project team, and the project team can import and export data as they wish. A frequently asked question, I'm going to explain the dashboard here in just a second, but a frequently asked question that many people ask us is where does the location data come from? So if I click on locations, you'll see that there's some preloaded locations that we've loaded into the demonstration site. But right here next to the locations button is an add or update button. And it brings down a drop-down menu. You add location data from an Excel spreadsheet. So for example, a request for information that is sent out to a community, and that data that's put into the Excel spreadsheet can be added or updated from a file. If you have already loaded in a locations data, you can copy it from some other location and copy it into this project. And of course, you can add a location by manual data entry and just add all the data that you want from there. Coming very soon, weeks away, is an integration to Lasso, which is another cloud-based application that our firm has been a part of developing. And we're going to feature that here after the demonstration. So Project Dashboard is a home base for the project team to see how many project locations are actively being looked at. So in this example, there's 8. And then it gives some average analytics. So an average want score, which is a qualitative score of the location, operating cost and investment cost, as well as some cards here that show the top 5 active scoring locations. Something else to feature on the project dashboard is down under project profile, there's a field called region. And Site Shepherd is at its core is a location benchmarking platform. So it's an analytic platform that lives in the cloud. Data is put in, data can be exported out, and I'll show you the charting feature where data is compared to each other. And that data is by any geographic unit that the user selects. So it can be country level, county level, CSA, MSA, sites, buildings, states, ZICDAs. So the user determines what geographic unit or what site or what building do I want to compare, select that, and then when the data that you're putting in, as long as you're comparing sites to sites and buildings to buildings, you're going to be able to see your composite results. So the next step is the project data model. So the project data model is organized by 3 categories: primary, secondary, and tertiary. We have loaded in a template. Every user of Site Shepherd receives 2 templates so that you're starting with some core criteria to begin with, and you can add your own criteria at any time and customize it for your specific project need. So an example of a criteria stack is, for example, site and ownership information. That's the primary category. Secondary category, per this template, is site size and configuration. And then one of the tertiary categories is total site size. What makes Site Shepherd powerful is once you click into the tertiary category, what you will see is one question or one statement. And that's what enables Site Shepherd to be a database. It is a big database, data-based with a D on the end. One data point, one question, one answer. And so the example for this one is, please indicate the total acreage for the proposed site. And it is, in this case, it really ought to be a must criteria, but it can be a must criteria. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to eliminate a site. It can just be indicated as a want criteria and a cost criteria. But this tertiary category, these lists of questions create, they're equivalent to the list of questions that you would see in a request for information in an RFI. So if we pretend that you have finished creating your data model, which is your location decision model, now you want to work with your client to understand how important are each of these categories. How much should they be weighted in terms of the location decision? So the weights add up to 100. And so in this case, this project, this client decided that site and ownership information is 15% of the overall total. And that site size is 20% of the overall. And then total site size is 35% of that 20%, which is 20% of the 15%. So this is all a weighted comparative model. And then when I click into the total site size is where I can set the scoring criteria. So this is all custom as well. At the Global Location Strategies consulting team, there's been a scoring scale identified out of 10, with 1, 4, 7, and 10, with 1 being a low score and 10 being a high score. But the type of scoring, the quantity of scoring, the response range, the actual scores are completely customizable by user based on whatever scoring scale you like to use. Some people like to use out of 100 or 1 to 5, and that's highly customizable. So I'll come back to the must analytic and the financial analytic in just a second. I want to finish this thought bubble of going from the data model to the want analytic to then locations. So you've created your categories, your weighting, and how each category is scored. Then when you upload your locations, and you might have 10 locations, you could have 100. But when you upload that data, the system auto scores it based on how you've told the data model to score it. And so that is where a big time savings, a big efficiency improvement comes in the automatic scoring. And so there's this list of, these are sample industrial sites from a Marvel movie, and they've all received an auto score. And you can sort here and see that the Firebolt distribution site is the highest scoring location. It's also showing the operating cost and the investment cost, which have been estimated through the financial analytic. And they're also showing the must recommendation of retain or eliminated that was determined through the must analytic. So similar to the want analytic, you set your model. Then when you upload your location data, any rules that you've told the software will automatically apply to the locations, and the results show up here on your locations page. The Firebolt distribution site is really high scoring, but you can see it does not have the lowest operating cost. So the way you can visualize locations compared to each other is on the charts page. The charts page is powered by Microsoft Power BI. And you can see here the composite results. And the want scoring in this example is on the left-hand side here, the y-axis. You can choose what you'd like to model on the y-axis. You can also choose what you'd like to model on the x-axis. So you can see in this example, the highest scoring, and then I'll change this to operating. The highest scoring and the lowest cost location is not the Firebolt site. It is actually the Wakanda Industrial Complex, whereas the Firebolt site is over here as high scoring, but not the lowest cost. This composite chart helps all clients, all economic development organizations, all consultants see the shortlist. What we're helping everyone accomplish is get to that shortlist faster so that you can then spend time looking at the finalist locations. There's also a map feature, and the map feature is powered by Mapbox so that you can also look at the locations based on the analytic and the comparisons on a map. And as I mentioned, all data can be exported, the models, all results. And then down here are some quick charts. So some quick, often used charts. We have created some quick access buttons down below. So I will stop the demo.
Susan, Susan, I might add on the charts down below, you can actually, if you'll go down and open like the want scoring, for example, you have the ability to customize that. So you can say what categories you want to include. You can also determine which sites you want to include, whether you want to show all of them or just the retained sites. And then you can download that image, which will allow you to easily put it into reports and that sort of thing to report back to your client or to your board or to whomever you're trying to provide that information.
And then you just click this link here to download the image. so that you can assemble your own custom report. I think the last thing I'll point out here is we've got a question mark down here, which is some in-app guides that show up that'll roll out with a getting started guide, how to use my projects, project dashboard, etc. And then up here, the help button takes you to the help center, which there are articles written here. So you can shoot us an email, you can book a meeting with someone from our team, and there's also a knowledge base of support articles. So I will head back to the meeting here. And hand it back to Dee Dee to reference the top highlights, the top features.
Great, thanks, Susan. So one of the things I really wanted to point out here too is that, and it's shown here as one of the highlights, is that everyone has a single tenant. So for example, there is a global location strategies tenant where we store our projects and our information, but for every client that subscribes to Site Shepherd, they will have their own tenant. So nobody else, not from Global Location Strategies or any other company, would be able to access that tenant and see your data. So know that confidentiality is of utmost importance, and that was one of the things that we built in from day one. Some of the other highlights is that it's a single repository of data. So I'm going to talk in just a minute about where you actually get the data from. But once you get it into the system, if you go in and change information about the site size or about the ownership or about an electric rate or whatever the case may be, it will be changed in all analytics at one time, and the scores and the cost estimates will automatically update. I do want to add that even though the system will automatically score and automatically calculate the cost and automatically make a must recommendation to the extent that your question is the analytic is phrased in a way that can be automatically scored, you can always, as a user, go back and override that. So you're not locked into a single piece of a single method of doing that, but it does, it will flag you that something has been overridden there. And that also gets into the point of transparency. So we want to be able to show our clients, and you as a customer want to be able to show whoever you're doing the analysis for, that this is not a biased opinion. This is actually something that is born out of rigorous data collection and data analysis, and that you are actually presenting the options that offer the best combination of low cost and high quality. Because it's on the cloud, it also gives us the ability to collaborate with our clients and our economic development friends, communities, to be able to show and collaborate on the data, to be able to collaborate on the scoring scales, on the percentages, to make recommendations. This is something that has always been a little bit of a black box because we do everything in, on our SharePoint or in our Excel files, and this really gives us a platform to be able to share it with others. And so those are the major highlights. I think we're going to move now to the questions, and I see some questions come in, and there's a couple that I anticipated that we would get. First one is, I think George Harbin asked, where does the raw data come from? So right now, and I emphasize right now, Site Shepherd is like an empty vessel. And it has the data analytics in it that you can build yourself, or you can modify from the templates that are provided. But the data is something that you provide. And there's a number of ways where that data can get entered. One is an upload from Excel, and that can be uploaded in bulk. So if you have some questions that apply to all locations that you're going to evaluate, and you can upload them in bulk. So you can put 20 sites, 20 questions, upload them at one time. When we're looking at requests for information, those might come in one spreadsheet at a time. So you just make sure you use the format that we provide, and you can upload them one at a time, or you can do a combination of those two. So you might have some questions that come in on a site-by-site basis, and you upload them one at a time. And you might have some questions that maybe you go out to your location, your labor analytics software, and you gather them all at one time for every location, and you can upload them in bulk. The other way is just manual data entry. If you don't have very many, the beauty of this is you can make it very complicated, but you can also make it very simple. So if you only have, say, 5 locations that you're looking at and you're only scoring on maybe 20 characteristics, you can manually enter that data. Or for bigger projects, you can go back and change it at any time. The third way is through licensing Lasso, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So Lasso is a data collection and collaboration software that we used to affectionately call the RFP Builder before we came up with a more catchy name, and we developed that in conjunction with Evergy, who are also the makers of LOIS. And so we're going to have an API. So you'll be able to collect that data through a request for information with Lasso, and that will come in directly into Site Shepherd through an API. And we are also developing APIs from other cloud database sources, which stay tuned for that. There'll be more information because our objective is to get as many APIs as possible so that you can source the data automatically. Some of that might be free. Some of that is available through public databases. So we may be able to provide that as a part of the subscription. Some you can port your own data. So if you have a subscription to a cloud database that you want to port, you can do that. And we're also working on some options where you can purchase data on demand. So if you just need 10 data points for 20 locations, you can be able to purchase that. So stay tuned for more information on that. So a little bit about Lasso. So the Lasso integration, like I said, this is a data collection and collaboration software, which we developed in conjunction with Evergy. And you can see a snapshot here of what it looks like. Essentially, you go in, you create your project just like you would with Site Shepherd, and these two talk to one another, so you don't have to do it twice. You either use a template, which matches the template that we provide in Site Shepherd to create your questions. And you can tell what is a requirement, so a must criteria, and also what is a required data piece that you want to require the whoever's filling out that information to send in before they can actually submit. Then you also you can add your participants, and Lasso really honors the existing economic development structure where the request for information would most often go directly to a project manager at a state level, for example. And that project manager would then look across their service area and see which communities had sites or buildings that met those requirements, and then delegate that request for information to those sites and communities so that those property representatives could then fill in the information and roll it back up to the project manager at the state level. They could do QA, QC, also look at the information, add any information at the state level that they want to do, and then submit it for consideration. On the project manager for the site selection side, the benefit is that we can see what communities are filling in information. We can't actually see the information until it's submitted, but we can see how many communities are working in which jurisdictions and how far along they are in the RFI. We're also working on ways, not available yet, where we can release these questions in phases so you don't have to answer all 500 questions at once. We can do kind of a pre-qualification. And also, to the extent that you have your sites in LOIS, you can automatically recall some of the information. And once you put it in the first time, even if you're not a LOIS customer, you'll still be able to recall that information after you've done that the first time. And then those properties come back to us. And then with an API, it automatically feeds into Site Shepherd so that you can start working with your data right away. I think I've been through this whole thing, but when you get the link, you'll see how that works, all the way from submitting the RFI, going to the state, then to the property representatives, and then basically zipping back up. So that's where the Lasso comes from, because we're corralling that data and harnessing it so that we can use it in Site Shepherd. So that was one of the questions that we anticipated. The other one that we anticipated is that I think there's a lot of you out there that are economic developers and saying, I'm not a site selector, technically speaking, so how can I use this? So one of the ways that we see economic developers, and we actually have 2 clients right now that are currently using this, is a reverse site selection process. So GLS has created templates for project profiles in many different industries. So data centers or battery manufacturing or food and beverage, et cetera, where you can purchase with your subscription to Site Shepherd those templates and then score your own sites and communities or buildings according to those templates and really get insight into where those communities and their properties can compete best and where they have weaknesses, and really help them forge a path to being more competitive. It may mean that maybe they're not very well suited for a particular target industry, or it may mean that they just need to do a few things in order to enhance their value proposition. And then obviously I know that everybody wants to know how much does this cost. And so since Susan is the business development person, I'm going to let her take this one.
We have created 2 different cost structures. So on the left-hand side of the screen is the small, medium, and large pricing called Traveler, Expedition, and Enterprise. And this is the software license fee for a 12-month subscription for everyone except for corporate location decision makers. So everyone is site selectors, economic development organizations, real estate developers, architects, engineers, construction managers. And the way we designed it is we thought the Traveler would be designed for more of an independent consultant or a freelancer, someone with a smaller team. Maybe there's one consultant with a few analysts that work with them. And so for the Lasso subscription, they'd be able to collect, they'd have 15 projects to be able to collect quite a bit of data, unlimited users, and you start with that request for information template. So you start with a long list of questions that of course you can modify, and that's $5,000 a year for Lasso. For Site Shepherd, it is 5 projects, 5 users, and then the concept of viewers. Unlimited viewers, and the reason why is because we want to really equip your team is our tagline, and we want that the users of these software platforms to be able to equip their teams to be able to collaborate. And so there's unlimited viewers. You can give anyone on the project team, the client, their board, their investment teams, whomever they want to look at the site selection model can log in and view it. And you can lock that down so that it's read-only, so that only the people that are the full users are controlling what data is in there. And then if you want to purchase Lasso and Site Shepherd together, we have worked with our partners at Lasso to create bundled pricing that is more competitive than buying the 2 software packages independently. So the bundled price for the Traveler package is $8,500. So that's the smallest package for a 12-month license. The Expedition bundled price is $27,500, and we designed that for more of a firm level, someone that maybe has 10 people working for them. And then the Enterprise level is really unlimited across the board, and we're negotiable and available to talk. We really thought that would be useful for anyone with multiple office locations, with potentially people multinational across the globe. Meanwhile, the corporate pricing is really for corporations, and it's designed for Lasso and Site Shepherd bundle to be at a more attractive pricing because they are not day-to-day site selection practitioners, and they might be purchasing really once in their career to execute a corporate location decision for a very specific project. And so that pricing is really to entice corporations to give them an option to self-perform and conduct the site selection process. And we're definitely, this is the team. The Global Location Strategies team is the team behind Site Shepherd, and we hope that we've built a brand that we are approachable and conversational. So if there's anyone that is interested, we'd be happy to have a conversation.
So we had a couple of other questions come in. One of them is, I think they're both related to one another. Is Site Shepherd connected to any site and building databases? And someone also asked about CoStar, Atlas, Zoom Prospector. So the Site Shepherd is not connected to any site databases currently. Through the integration with Lasso, we are connected, or you can submit your sites via LOIS, but obviously it is not limited to only LOIS customers. This might be something that we look at in the future, being able to connect to other databases. But it does give let's say, for example, you had a site that was on CoStar, you would be able to enter that information into Lasso, but it's still a manual entry at this point. Again, we're looking for many different ways where we can streamline that process, and obviously are open to any suggestions that anyone has. Don't see any other questions. So I think I'll go on to the next piece, which is, okay, so what next? So Global Location Strategies is going to continue to serve their manufacturing and industrial clients. That really is our bread and butter. And so from a consulting standpoint, we are still going to be site selection consultants. But we have this other arm of our company now, which is the Global Location Technologies, that is going to continue developing these site selection platforms, technology platforms that really enable in site selection for all. We have coming out, some of you may have seen it, there's siteselectiontech.com, which is we brought out at Select USA, and that is a marketplace for people that are involved in the site selection process, be they site selection professionals, real estate brokers, developers, or corporate do-it-yourselfers, where you can go to get the gear that you need to identify sites, benchmark those sites and communities, do diligence on those sites and communities, do workforce analysis on those locations, and also to manage your incentives compliance. So stay tuned for that. We actually have another launch party that's coming up in about a month's time, I think. So we'll be doing another one of these webinars to introduce you to those tools and to that marketplace as well. So we're finishing up a little bit early here, but I really appreciate all of you participating. And we are very, very excited to share this with you. If you would like to book a demo, you can see the link there. We will be emailing you this presentation so that you have it. We will also send you a link to the recording so that you're welcome to come back and visit again anytime. And we just look forward to telling you more. We will keep you updated as we move along with all of our improvements. And again, we appreciate your participation today. Thank you so much.